speaking of facts, I think it's a fact that Bing Bong disappearing near the end of the movie is bar none the saddest moment in cinema history.
Yeah.
That is not opinion, that is fact.
Oh. On that one. Wait, hold on. Okay.
Welcome back to Life Lessons in Film. Today we're going to be making sense of life through Dune. No, JK. Inside Out. We're going to do Dune, and we did a bait and switch on you, I think. I'm not sure if that's a bait and switch. We watched Dune without subtitles. Mistake. We should just watch every movie with subtitles. We missed a lot of what was going on in the movie, so decided to do Inside Out instead. Honestly
and
though.
By the way, we're sick, so.
Oh yeah, we were around a lot of people.
There was a festival. And we went.
There might have been a contagion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hope we don't sound too stepped up. But honestly though, I think Inside Out either is my favorite Pixar movie or at least is tied for favorite. I love it so much. What? Like top favorite Pixar movie.
I also really loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I only have one lesson in this movie. I feel like that is the whole entire theme of the movie.
What is that?
Is that all emotions, including bad emotions, the so-called negative emotions, are good.
Yeah.
And all of them should be accommodated.
Yeah.
Should we give like a brief synopsis?
Yeah, the story follows an 11-year-old girl, Riley, and her mom and dad. They move to a new city. And that's where things start getting a little crazy. So the main characters, though, are her 5 emotions. Yeah. Joy, sadness, fear, disgust, fear, and anger.
Yeah. And so then we are basically inside her emotions.
Yeah. Her psyche, her brain, her mind.
Yeah. And so Joy is running the show. And she, in her mind, we have to keep Riley happy at all costs.
Because they love Riley and they want her to be as happy as possible.
Exactly. And so then she basically... she's in charge and does not let the other emotions govern Riley's subconscious along with her. Yeah. Sadness is the most deprived of access to Riley's subconscious. Joy always tries to keep sadness as busy as possible so that she doesn't get involved whatsoever. She doesn't like entertaining any kind of sadness when it comes to Riley. Yeah. And so that's really... I think in the end, obviously, she realized that, oh, wait, actually, we have to accommodate everybody. That's how the movie ends. Yeah. Her Joy realizing that she's been wrong the whole time, suppressing every other emotion but happiness, basically. Yeah. So I feel like that's literally the whole movie. Yeah.
Which I think is an important lesson. You could look at it as Joy being perhaps an overbearing parent in a sense that never wants their kid to... It's a catastrophe anytime the kid is sad, and then they... Okay, how do we fix this right now? Or if they're angry, how do we work through these emotions? Let's talk through what made you angry. You know, it's like, no, be happy. That toxic positivity. Positivity, yeah.
And that's literally what Joy does the whole time. Whenever she catches Riley being sad, she goes and gets those balls.
Remember something happy.
Yeah, something happy, or play that song that she always loves. Let's play that. It just jogged that memory. Yeah. And it kind of reminded me of, you know, there are those parents who, when their kids are crying, for example, they'll just be like, oh, let's go out for ice cream. Yeah. Or
quickly, let's give them something to eat or something to make them, or put them in front of the TV or something to get them to
stop crying. Yeah. Or just think about it. Even when you're soothing a baby, if a baby is crying, you'll be like, shh, don't cry. Yeah. And think about it. If for someone who has no conception of the complexities of language, because if someone right now, if I was crying and someone said to me, don't cry, and was holding me, I would understand that they're not necessarily telling me to stop crying. It's their idea of soothing me. But for a baby who doesn't know, I think when you're a kid, you are, at that tender age, you're taking things quite literally. And you're like, oh, does that mean crying is not good? Yeah. So we often tend to say, don't cry, shh, instead of, okay, let it all out. Let it all out. Cry it out, honey. Yeah. That's good. You're doing a good job. Let it out until the pain stops, until you're ready.
Right. Instead of suppressing it.
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing about that as well is that it makes you as a person feel like, oh, crying is not... You associate crying and letting the difficult or challenging emotions to be, like a bad thing. It also kind of strikes you as a burden to the person, because if the person keeps telling you stop, you then internalize that as, oh, mom doesn't like it when I cry. If I'm crying, it's a burden to them. They get really frustrated. All of those things. Joy the whole time. I could literally, when I was looking at her the whole time, I was like remembering things even my own parents did. Honestly, like my own parents would do that. My dad like totally would always buy me food or something, like something that he knew that I enjoyed. He would rather do that instead of like, oh, you know, watch me cry. And he's just like deer in headlights. Yeah.
So many people don't know how to handle sadness. Let's do something to distract you or to get your mind off it. Instead of, and the great part of the movie, where Riley's imaginary friend, Bing Bong, who has since kind of become forgotten, they find him, I think, in like not the subconscious, but in the, you know, forgotten area of the psyche. And he's sad because they lose the cart that they used to play with. And then Joy's just trying to be like, oh, you know, try to distract and be like, it's fine, let's make a game, let's always turn this into a positive and forget about it. But he doesn't actually get over it until sadness allows him to just talk it out and shares condolences and commiserates with him. And he's like, that must have been really hard for you and everything. And then he's able to get it out and he's like, okay, let's keep going.
Exactly. And I mean, you just think about it. It's not even kids that experience this. Whenever you're going through some tough times as an adult, I find a lot of times people say things like, oh, let's go out, just, you know, go for things that they know you like. Let's go out partying, let's go out drinking, and just kind of forget about your worries. Or, you know, let's take you out somewhere hiking, whatever stuff that I always bring up hiking because I like it. So I know people who know that I like it will always just say, oh, you're feeling down, let's go for a hike. And I'm like, I don't want to go for a hike. That's a Band-Aid solution. I want to cry. Let's talk about this thing that's making me sad and cry it out. That's what I want. People just always have that whole thing where it's like, okay, well, sad emotion, let's replace that with a good, fun thing that's going to generate positive emotions. But let me tell you what that means. It means that sad emotion is still in your subconscious and it's still like festering and it's piling up for years. It's piling up because you're not doing anything about it. And you wonder why you're so sad.
The joy emotions, you could say character development is that at one point, she finally breaks down and starts to cry. And for the first time, because she, in a way, was always afraid of allowing her sadness to be a thing, to come out. So when it finally happens, she sees the benefit that the sadness emotion has to living a happy life.
Exactly.
And then that's when she realizes, oh, it's also okay to allow memories to be both happy and sad, or to be a mix of emotions, to be a little nuance. Like at the end, they show that some memories are bit joy and bit disgust, because you can be like, oh, you know, that was really gross that we saw, but then we got to laugh about that gross thing that we saw. Or you can be a bit angry and a bit sad, and you know, it's a range of things. It's not simply cut and dry. This is happy, this is all sad.
People always say, don't dwell in the negatives. And I do understand how important it is, of course, not to obsess over negativity without actually channeling you reflecting on your negativity towards a positive end. I always say, if you're still feeling sad about it, let's talk about it for 20 years. If you need to talk about it for 20 years, the same thing, so that it comes out. Because the more you're talking about it, you're processing it. And the more you talk about it, over time, the less you need to process it. And then it's just not there anymore, you know? And so I'm a huge champion for dwelling over negative stuff for a while. Because for as long as you haven't dealt with it, it's still there and it's still a negative emotion that needs to go somewhere.
There's one line that just says, emotions can't quit. The emotions can't quit. They're always there. You can try and numb yourself, bottle them up all you want, but they will always be there. So that's why it's important to, first of all, again, accept that humans are emotional creatures, and that's a good thing. That's what actually, you know, when they said that fear first came on the scene, he was able to protect her and not potentially trip over things or get too close to things that seem fearful. Emotions a lot of times actually all, you know, keep you safer and keep you cautious and aware, or, you know, functional.
It's such an interesting thing, because even fear, right? Like fear is such an important emotion because at the end of the day, there's so many things that you start where you're taking risk. It's really a risk, right? Like, let's say even just starting a new job or starting school, there's a lot of fear there. You don't know how things are going to go. You're the new person and you don't know if you're going to acclimatize properly or if it's going to be a really tough thing for you, but you know that it's something that you have to face, like it or not, you know? And so in that situation, it's just one of those things where, okay, I'm going into this like lion's den. That's a fear, you know, that you have to face, like it or not. It will always be there. And so you need to learn how to come to terms with the fact that with the presence of fear in your life, and you need to come to terms with how to navigate it, right? Mm-hmm. You can't always just say, well, I'm not going to move to a different job now because I don't want to deal with fear. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Fear, like anger, say, or any of them, fear can drive you to actually consider other options or maybe needing to make a change.
Yeah.
You're like, why am I afraid? Oh, because I'm in a precarious situation. If you had no fear, then something would just, you would just get hit by a train because you weren't afraid. Oh, what if I stay on the tracks too long?
Exactly. It's exactly that.
Same thing with anger. That also helps you think, something is off here. I need to consider what's going on and hopefully see if I can get out of that or change that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us do struggle to really truly understand the need to deal with the sad parts of life and to just face them.
I think it's a revolutionary movie. One of those movies you look back on years later and see how much of an impact it had on people realizing how important emotions are to living with other people and living healthily. And I like that, she tries other emotions like disgust, anger, fear with the parents, and they just get frustrated at her and it triggers their fear and anger and disgust. But then when she comes home and she just lets sadness take over, and then they can console, and then they're able to connect with her.
Yeah.
Which is why I think that's where she's just let sadness take over, because she's like, really, it's as important an emotion as joy.
Yeah. When Bing Bong, sacrifices himself. Yeah, that was really sad, but it was also a momentous occasion. She's becoming a big girl now and doesn't need and
it's okay, Reggie. They see that certain memories fade, and then they have the people cleaning it up, because it's like, sure, it was important at one point, but you have to make room for other memories.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I think that's what adds to the sadness for me, is just knowing that the memories fade, and it's kind of has to happen because you just can't keep them all.
Mm-hmm.
And then some also just become less relevant. Like that's what they talk about, the core memories. There's certain ones that are if you don't reflect on them a lot, you lose them.
Yeah.
Right? There's just a lot of great stuff that you can just relate to how minds work. But at one point, it was a very short, very like small part of the thing. They get on the train of thought, and then they knock over some boxes of stuff that had, one box had facts, another box had opinions in it, and they get them mixed up, and then they're like, oh no, they're trying to figure out how we're going to put them back in the right thing, because they're like, facts and opinions look the same. So just like, it's one short, that's the thing, there's so many just one-liners in that movie that are so true and so deep,
Facts and opinions
look the same.
That's perfect.
And I love that, for people that think, no, this is just a fact, this is just a common sense, and you're like, or maybe it's just what you grew up around, your conditioned opinions about things, and it feels nice to know that there is some actual stuff that you can put money on, instead of just believing that everything is maybe just your perspective.
Exactly, which I love, because we've talked a lot about dogma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's great to have that in a movie for kids, because like everybody's opinion matters at the end of the day. You can't say what is fact and what is opinion. So if you're of that mindset, it means you're much more open to differing opinions to yours. And that's okay, instead of being that, person who's just like super, no, you're wrong and I'm right. And if you're like that, I mean, it's already over for you.
When you hear someone saying you can't argue with facts, they're saying you can't argue with my opinion because I want to be right and I don't want to reconsider my opinion.
Yeah. Which is, again, I think another thing with, I don't know, like this movie is fantastic. This movie is fantastic, really.
So good.
Yeah, and I like maybe there is more to it than just the emotions, but because of course the memories, right? Yeah, the memories are so important. Things that do happen in your life affect you in this present moment, and they build you, right?
They make you who you are. They form your personality and your how you see your memories. Also, at one point, there's kind of this perspective of which I can relate to, where on one way you look back and you think, no, most of my memories were joyful. They were yellow and glowing, and and then if you just kind of spin them around a little bit and you actually analyze them a little differently, you think, oh no, but there was a lot of sadness in those memories as well.
Exactly. Yeah, perspective, right? I was looking back at something and I felt really bad for looking back at it with a negative lens, and then talking about how now, as I'm reflecting on it, I realize how much more a positive thing it was. Like, it wasn't even anything, I don't know if I should talk about it. It's like parents related. We try very much not to be talking about like our personal lives because it is just about movies but at the same time, I think that's really why we like movies because we dissect them according to the lives that we are living. Yeah. And so after every single movie, I'm telling you what we're doing literally right now, and which is why we ended up doing a movie. Well, it's not a review, but getting life lessons in movies. Yeah. Which is why we ended up doing this. Is because we do this all the time. Yeah. If we weren't sitting in front of the camera, we'd be going for a walk, talking about Inside Out,
and we'd be trying to figure out a problem or something in our past, and then we'd be like, well, that reminds me of a movie, and then we think about what happened in the movie and how it relates.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's this thing, my dad used to do this thing where he'd be like, oh, they're going to be so proud of you. You are just such a smart girl, and they're going to think you're great, you know? And it would irritate the hell out of me. And the reason it would irritate the heck out of me, because when I was assessing it at that time, it made me feel I felt like it placed me under a lot of pressure where I felt like, oh my gosh, what if I failed? He has this so much faith in me and I feel like if I don't do well, he's going to be super disappointed. And I felt like I would get so upset with him for saying that, because I'm like, no, I don't want to grapple with needing to be perfect. You know what I mean? And then now when I look back at it, I feel so bad for being upset with him, because I'm like, that's just, why didn't I look at that as my parent believes in me? That feels so good. That is such a fantastic thing for your dad to look at you as someone who other people will see as, you know, great.
And probably if you brought it up, he'd remember it as a joyful memory. I was so proud of you that time, and then you remember it as blue.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's those kinds of things. But I think one thing I'm noticing with that, it was really just much more my own personal fear of failure, or my own personal struggles with needing to be, if I do something, I have to do it perfectly, or otherwise I don't do it at all. You know, those are my own personal things. But if I didn't struggle with those things, I feel like I would have looked at that with a much more positive emotion. Right. Yeah, which is how I'm looking at it now. And now it feels good. Now that memory feels good versus when I was versus, you know, like a year or 2 years ago, that memory would have still felt like, it still felt like a bad memory. Yeah. Yeah. I think that memory was important for me. Is a core memory for me in the sense of understanding that as people, when someone says something to you, don't assess it through your own lens. Look at it from a different perspective, like from different perspectives, what it could mean. And if you have the opportunity to ask, like, what do you mean by that? You know, or even share, you know, when you say that, it makes me feel like this, you know, and then the person could be like, well, honey, no, that's not what I mean. Even if you fail, it's okay. I just needed to, I believe in you. But even if you don't, you know, if all you do is try, I see you the same way. I still know that I see you as my daughter, my sister, my brother, whatever, who tries and who goes for it or whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yep. Yeah. So I think, like that's why the memory element of the movie was also really quite important for me. Yeah. And it also made me feel like I need to journal. Get on track with my journaling because I try to journal, but it's really hard. But just to keep the most important memories as much as possible in writing. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. Maybe I'm looking too far into it. Although with this kind of movie, those little details are put in there for a reason. I noticed that the sadness emotion was the main one in the mom psyche.
Oh yeah.
That was interesting. So either she eventually just took over, like maybe sadness was starting to get more control of the console in Riley, so it just eventually sadness kind of starts to take joy. Kids start off and they're basically happy all the time, and then as you get older, you know, there's just more things to be sad about, but you also learn to still be able to carry on even knowing, and maybe the mother grew up just in a much sadder environment even than Riley did, so that was kind of almost her core emotion, you know, but I thought that was kind of an interesting touch.
Yeah, I did see that too, but I was just kind of, I don't know, I guess I didn't think too much of it because sadness in the mom psyche seemed happier than sadness. Yeah. So I was like, does that mean that maybe it was she grew up and she's a little bit more healthy, and so maybe that at that moment sadness is the one that's kind of taking over, you know, because like at the end with Riley, they have all of these controls change to accommodate every emotion. Yeah. And then they're rotating. You're in charge now. Yeah. You know what I mean? So maybe that was what was going on.
Well, and you're right. I think they also, the fact that they have all the emotions in Riley kind of very frantically like, you do something and you do something, because they're still very emotionally like volatile young kids. So they're kind of just going from one extreme emotion to another. Whereas, when you get a little more mature, generally maybe, you know, the mom has a kind of the blend of the sadness and joy, where the sadness is able to very calmly, you know, say, okay, we're going to need this emotion now. But they're so much more able to control their emotions that's why they're all kind of a little similar. They're not quite all the extremes.
So that's about it.
That's about it. That's some of the stuff that we took from Inside Out. But what did you guys think?
Was there something you took from it that we didn't
cover? Most likely. There's this jam-packed full of
super
great
juicy
stuff with going into the abstract thought and the subconscious. And so much great psychology stuff in the movie.
I know, So, comment down below and share your thoughts on our thoughts, please.
Please do. Until next time, that's a wrap.
Bye.